Hello, welcome back to Dairy State Vegan and welcome to day 2 of our Thanksgiving series. Today's sides are going to be a creamy vegan mac and cheese, a homemade vegan green bean casserole, and of course, a delicious vegan stuffing. Get out your pen and paper and let's get cooking. Alright, so the first side we're going to get started with is our stuffing because this will take the longest in the oven. It's going to take about 45 minutes in a 350-degree oven. So into a skillet with about a tablespoon of butter, you're going to put about a quarter of a diced large onion, 1 diced stalk of celery, and about 6 thinly sliced sage leaves. And we're going to saute this down low and slow so it gets really fragrant and really sweaty. This is going to add a lot of flavor to your stuffing, so do not skip this part. Then while that's sweating down, I'm going to rough chop about a quarter cup of walnuts and a quarter cup of craisins. You can of course skip this, although I highly recommend keeping it in your stuffing. The craisins add just a good amount of tartness and the walnuts add a really yummy richness to your stuffing. So once they're roughly chopped, we're going to add them to our dried bread. This bread is just 1 loaf of any bread you want that I sliced up and cubed and left on a cookie sheet to dry overnight. If you want to speed it up, you can just put it in a warm oven for 1 hour. But since your oven will be very occupied the day of Thanksgiving, I recommend setting it up the night before. And then you're going to add approximately 2 to 2.5 cups of vegetable stock to this bread. It all depends on how dry your bread is, so it's not an exact measurement. Just make sure you're looking for about the consistency of like a bread pudding texture, since all stuffing really is savory bread pudding. So we're going to mix the bread in really well to make sure every single piece gets saturated. And then I'm going to make a flax egg. So if you've never made a flax egg before, it's really easy. It's just 1 tablespoon of ground flaxseed to 2.5 tablespoons of water. But since we already have vegetable stock and we're using this flax egg in our bread pudding, I just used 2.5 tablespoons of stock. So you're going to whisk together the stock and the flax meal. Yes, I lost my fork. Even I lose my mind in the kitchen sometimes. All right, so whisk it together and then set it down for about 2-3 minutes and forget about it. You want it to thicken up and get to almost a gelatinous consistency. So to my bread, my secret to my stuffing is I add a tablespoon of Worcestershire sauce. Make sure you get the vegan. Most Worcestershire has anchovies in it, so make sure you're looking for vegan when you're making the stuffing. And then I'm also going to add some poultry seasoning. Again, this was a rough day in the kitchen for me, y'all. I couldn't get anything open. I kept losing things. I was going to edit all of this out, but then I figured I'd show y'all the real life. So this is just poultry seasoning I bought in the seasoning aisle. And I'm going to add about 1.5 tablespoons. And I'm going to add some garlic powder, about 1/2 tablespoon. Then of course, pinch of salt, about 2 teaspoons here. And a pinch of black pepper, about 2 teaspoons of that as well. We're going to check on our sweaty veg. They're still not quite there yet. So we're going to add our flax egg in and then we'll mix that and all the seasonings in and incorporate them well into the bread. That's the texture you're looking for a flax egg. There are egg replacers out there. I just find a flax egg to be super nutritious and really easy and much cheaper than some of the egg replacers you purchase. The trick is to make sure you're mixing this really, really well. Nobody wants to get a bite full of poultry seasoning, so make sure everything is really well incorporated. And then my top secret to the best stuffing ever is when you're preheating your oven to 350, put your 9x13 Pyrex in there too with about 2 tablespoons of butter. This is gonna help you get really caramelized texture on the bottom of your stuffing. Our veggies are almost there, but not quite. Be patient, it's worth the wait. Don't try and rush this process. This is also something you could do the day before if you wanted and seal it in a Pyrex container. A lot of this can be prepped the day before. So once they're all sweaty and translucent and smell just very fragrant, we're gonna mix that into the stuffing. This is where most of your flavor is really going to come from. These really fragrant onions and celery and sage. This was actually the first time my son had ever braved eating stuffing, and he loved it. So if you have picky kids, my picky 10-year-old devoured this stuffing. Again, make sure you're getting it really well incorporated so that everybody gets a little bit of everything in their bite. And then it's time to put it in the pan. So look, so we have the butter melted. We're gonna roll it around the bottom of the Pyrex. And then we're just gonna pour our bread filling into that pan. We're gonna pat it out and spread it evenly. And then this can bake in a 350-degree oven for 40 to 45 minutes. Another tip is if you don't want to take up the space in your oven for your stuffing, you can actually put this in your crock pot on high for an hour and then on low for another 4 hours. So if you don't have room in your oven, you can definitely do this. Again, just while your crock pot is preheating, put the butter in there and then cook it on high for 1 hour, low for 4 hours. All right, so now on to our green bean casserole. I have half a package of baby Bella mushrooms diced finely and about half of a white onion diced as well. And we're gonna throw these into they call these like chicken frying pans. You're gonna need the space, so a bigger frying pan with a couple tablespoons of butter. I know I said this in my first video, but Thanksgiving is not the time to show your friends and family your whole food, plant-based, super healthy, all raw recipes. We want them to love the food that we're bringing and that we're eating, so don't be afraid of butter or sugar or salt. It's an indulgent holiday, enjoy it. We're also gonna add about 1 tablespoon of minced garlic, along with some of the juices from the jar. I had some of the juices in with that tablespoon. This is the base of our cream of mushroom soup for our green bean casserole. And you guys, this cream of mushroom soup is so good. I could eat it just with a spoon. All right, about 2 teaspoons of salt. And about a teaspoon of black pepper. And we're gonna mix this together well and then let it to sit and saute again to get really sweaty and flavorful, especially the mushrooms. We wanna get some of the umami flavor out of those mushrooms. So I've soaked 1 cup of cashews for about 4 hours, and we're just gonna drain this 1 cup of cashews. I know it looks like a lot more than a cup, but it's because they soaked. And this is gonna make our cream base for our soup. So we're gonna put 1 cup of cashews in with 12 ounces of water. And then we're gonna blend this all together until it's nice and creamy. Now I have a Ninja blender. If you don't have a Ninja blender, it's fine. You can still do this. You just might have to blend it a little bit longer. I only recently updated, but I've made this before with a $20 blender from Target. We're also going to add about half a tablespoon of cornstarch. This is just going to help our consistency to be thicker. And trust me, this is enough for a 9x13 pan of green bean casserole, so I don't think there's any reason to double this recipe unless you have a crazy large family. My family is pretty humongous, and this makes about enough for the whole family. All right, then once it's fully blended, I'm going to squeeze in half of a juice of lemon. Save the other half. We're going to need it for our macaroni and cheese sauce. And then to make sure I don't get any seeds in my cashew cream, I'm just going to strain it through my fingers. You can also use a colander. I'll show you. Right, and then we're going to add 4 dashes of nutmeg. I know this sounds weird. Don't skip it. You need it. Nutmeg is like the savior of cream sauces. I'm going to add a pinch of salt, about a teaspoon. And about a half teaspoon of black pepper. And then we're just going to pulse this real quick on the blender to incorporate all the seasoning. And then we're going to gradually mix a 1.5 cups of stock with our cashew cream. We're going to alternate putting them in and whisk them in between to make sure that it all incorporates well together and doesn't separate. Now, as you whisk these together, you might notice that it doesn't get quite as thick as you want. Give it a little bit of time, but if you find it necessary to add a little more thickener, you'll want to whisk together 1 tablespoon of cornstarch to about 4 tablespoons of almond milk, and then put it into this mixture. If you put cornstarch directly into the hot mixture, you're going to have clumpy cream and mushroom soup, and nobody wants that. You're going to continue to whisk this for about 5 to 8 minutes over a low-medium heat until it really starts to thicken up, and that's when you know it's time to add in your green beans. So see how that texture is almost a little thicker even than a gravy? That's what we want for our consistency. And then into our 9x13 Pyrex pan, we're just going to add our green beans. Now, I bought frozen. You can also use fresh or canned. I was going for time here, so frozen are fine. Just make sure you thaw them if you use frozen. And I used just shy of 2 bags because I didn't want it to overfill my pan. In hindsight, I could have used the full 2 bags. So we're going to pour our cream of mushroom soup over the top of our green beans. And then we're going to mix it well together until everything is well incorporated. And then last but not least, we're gonna top it with our French fried onions. I got these from Aldi. They're accidentally vegan. Most French fried onions are, or you can make your own. Now I will say I would add a whole bunch more to the top of your casserole when you make it, but I only had just a few left in my can, so I did what I could with what I had. Plus my husband decided he needed a little snack. He got tired from filming. So I obliged and gave him some of our topping. And then once this is topped, you're gonna pop it in the oven with your stuffing at 350. This is gonna last about 20 minutes in the oven, and this will give us time just to work on our macaroni and cheese. So shock of the day, I know, I'm putting a couple tablespoons of butter, vegan butter of course, in a pan with about a quarter cup of diced up onion. This doesn't really have to be diced too fine because this is actually going to be pulsed in a blender. I just want to cook out some of the raw quality of the onion. And then in this pot, I've had boiling 3 Yukon Gold potatoes and 1 carrot. And this is going to be the base for our cheese sauce, believe it or not. So we're gonna take our carrot and potatoes and we're gonna put them into our blender. Again, I have a Ninja. It's absolutely not necessary. It'll just take a little extra time to blend. You could actually even do this with an immersion blender if you have an immersion blender. And then to the vegetables, I'm gonna add about 16 ounces of the hot water that they cooked in. So once your onions seem like they're starting to get translucent, we will also add those to our blender. They don't need to be fully translucent, just a little bit. And then I have soaked half of a cup of raw cashews for 4 hours, and we're gonna rinse those, and we're adding that to our blender as well. Here's where we're gonna use the other half of our lemon, squeezing it through a colander to make sure we don't get any seeds in our macaroni and cheese cheesy sauce. Y'all, not only for Thanksgiving is this good, but if you have kids who are picky about vegetables, this is such a great recipe. They think it's mac and cheese, but really it's veggies. All right, we're gonna add 4 tablespoons of almond milk. Hopefully you're better at keeping it in the tablespoon than I am. But if you pour a little extra, it's fine if it gets a little thin. You can always add a little more cornstarch to thicken it. And then my all-time favorite, nutritional yeast, aka Nooch. You're gonna start with 3 tablespoons. But as you go, taste it and add more. Some people don't like a lot and some people like a whole bunch. In all fairness, my family, by the time this recipe is done, adds about 6 or 7 tablespoons. We're gonna add about half of a tablespoon of garlic powder. Again, with the kitchen struggles. Y'all, it was real today. A couple teaspoons of salt. Little bit of black pepper, not too much. Remember, this isn't a gravy, this is a cheese sauce. So really just like half a teaspoon. And then we are gonna blend it up. While we're blending our sauce, don't forget to have a pot of salted water coming to a boil to cook your pasta. So once we go through our first blend on our cheese sauce, again, we're gonna add some butter. This is gonna add the real creamy, cheesy-like consistency. So add about a tablespoon, and then about half a tablespoon of cornstarch. This would be where you'd add in more nooch too if you wanted to. And then we're just going to blend it one more time to make sure it's really smooth in texture. So now that our pasta water has come to a rolling boil, we're going to add our pasta. I'm using cavatappi here. It's just a super fun spirally pasta. I like to use it when I'm cooking for company. You can use any type of pasta you want. This is just what I chose because it's fun, and why not? Once you throw it in the pan, just make sure to give it a little stir so it doesn't stick together, and then leave it alone for 8 to 10 minutes to cook. Then once it's finished cooking, you're going to strain your pasta. And we're going to toss our pasta into a glass Pyrex bowl to get it ready to mix in with our cheesy sauce. And there you have it. Our mac and cheese is complete. We're going to get everything else out of the oven and serve it. And we have 3 super delicious, super decadent, fully vegan sides to put on your Thanksgiving table. Y'all, I hope you really enjoyed this video. I hope you enjoy the recipes. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Make sure if you like these videos to hit that like button, comment below, and subscribe to my channel. I'll have more Thanksgiving recipes coming out soon. Next video is Thanksgiving main dishes, and I will see you then. Thanks. Bye.